So kids, last time we talked, hi sweetheart, last time we talked about Rosh Hashanah. Come sit. You can sit up there carefully, you can sit here, you can sit right there. In fact, you're sitting in exactly the right place for you. Right there is perfect. So the question that I have for you before you sit down is what's different about this holiday? We say on Passover, we say, what is different about tonight? What makes this night different? So what makes today different to Rosh Hashanah? They're both beginning of the year holidays. Anybody have an idea? Yes, you do. Excuse me, sweetheart.
Rosh Hashanah is kind of like a happy holiday. It's the beginning of a new year. And Yom Kippur is all about repentance.
Okay, I don't know if everybody heard. Rosh Hashanah is kind of a happy holiday. It's all about the new year. And Yom Kippur is about repentance. You're exactly right. I'm kind of happy today. And the reason I'm kind of happy on Yom Kippur is there's something great about realizing who we are. It's like when you clean your room and you go, oh, it actually feels good. You have to go through the effort, but at the end, you can see your bed and there's actually a floor under it. So that's kind of how I feel about Yom Kippur. It makes me happy to come to these days. But you're right. Anybody want to describe what is repentance? It's a big word. Anybody know what repentance means? Give us your best shot at it. What were you going to say?
I think it means giving away.
Okay, actually it does mean giving away. You know what it is? Repentance is giving away our idea that we're right all the time. That's what we give away, right? We say to God, you know what? I realize I'm just as human as she is, and she is, and he is, and he is, which means I have to give away that idea that I'm perfect, and I have to give away the idea that right is more important than being kind. There's a lot that we give away today. So repentance is about coming clean. It's about standing before God and standing before our families and our friends and ourselves and saying, today's a day to apologize, and today's also a day to seek forgiveness and to apologize, right? To ask forgiveness of others. So let me ask you guys for some ingredients for our story. When I say ingredients, they don't have to be foods, but we can throw some foods in. What do we want to be in our story? Just call it out. We have mushrooms, okay? I think we have enough. I think we have one food. Now let's go to things or ideas or characters that you want in our Yom Kippur story. Any idea? Love? All right, we'll work love in. It's not going to be love of mushrooms. I can't do that. It's just not a story I can tell honestly. Okay.
Smiles.
Smiles. Love, smiles, and mushrooms. Okay, we have a good story so far, I think. I don't know yet.
A person who offends a bunch of people and doesn't care about other people.
A person who offends a bunch of people and doesn't care about other people. Mushrooms, smiles, and love. Give me one more that's completely out of the box. What do I mean by out of the box? Just doesn't belong with mushrooms, smiles, or a person who offends a lot of people and doesn't care about anybody else. You got it? Sure? This is going to be the one.
Halloween.
My parents always taught me, be careful what you wish for. So we're going to start our story. And the story goes like this. There was once a man with a big fuzzy beard that went all the way down to his belly button. And he walked through the streets kicking things that he saw. He'd bump into people. He didn't mind. He never said he was sorry, because he wasn't sorry. To say you're sorry when you're not sorry is just dishonest, right? So this man, let's give him a name. Nobody gave me a name. We need a name for this man, but it's got to fit his character and his beard. Okay. Bob. Bob, so here's what I have to work with, just for a little sympathy. Bob, mushrooms, a smile, love, and a man who offends a lot of people. Okay, and Halloween, not to forget Halloween. So this man, and we're going to call him not Bob, because that's too small for him, Bob. Right? Whenever we say his name, it's going to be Bob, to go with the length of his beard. So Bob goes through the streets and go through his life, offending a lot of people. It comes Rosh Hashanah, you know what he does? He dresses up in a Halloween costume. And his family doesn't understand, but they say, that's Bob, always offending other people. Bob comes into the synagogue one day. The door opens, and there's a mezuzah on the side of the door. He knows he was taught to kiss it as a sign of affection. He says, I'm not kissing anything. As he strokes his long beard that goes down to his belly button because his name is Bob. So Bob wears a Halloween costume to the synagogue on Yom Kippur when other people are wearing talits and all wearing white, and they're praying and they're doing this and they're speaking to God and praying to God and closing their eyes and singing and putting their arms around each other. Bob does something else. He sits when they stand, and he's the only person who stands when everyone else is sitting. But he doesn't just stand, he stands and he strokes his magnificent curly beard that has lots of meals hanging from it. Because it's Bob. I could go for an easy one and say he has a mushroom hanging off his beard, but I'm not going to do that because you challenged me. But what happens one day between Yom Kippur and Halloween is that Bob realizes that you can either live in darkness, which is where mushrooms grow, or you can live in light, which is where the rest of us thrive, right? Somebody liked it, right? Mushrooms grow in the dark, apparently. I still don't like mushrooms. But what happened that day was Bob realized either he could continue being the one who turned the lights off when he came into place, or he could be one who turned light on wherever he went. So what do you think changed him? What do you think was that moment, the awakening of Bob? When Bob realized that he had to get the food out of his beard, even that hanging mushroom. When Bob realized there was a day not to wear a Halloween costume. When Bob realized that when he bumped into somebody, he needed to say, I'm sorry. Not just because he was taught to, but because he felt sorry for hurting someone, for offending somebody, for bothering somebody. And it was Yom Kippur, that day when Bob had this gorgeous long beard with mushrooms hanging off it, when Bob stood in the synagogue when everybody else sat, when Bob sat when everybody else stood. That was the day that year when Bob heard a shofar blown, and something cracked in Bob. It was like a hardness was shed from him. He realized the beauty of a smile. He realized that all the people around him were looking at him not with anger, not with disdain. They were looking at him with love. And he realized that the costume was a barrier between him and other people. So he first took his big pointed hat off. And he had a little yarmulke from childhood. He put it on his head. The next thing he did was he had big earrings that were hanging off for Halloween that went with his costume. He thought, they're making a lot of noise. Maybe it's bothering somebody when they pray, and he took those off. And he had a giant cloak that if he stood here, the cloak went all the way to the back doors. And as he prayed that Yom Kippur morning and he heard the shofar blow, he just started pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling the cloak, knowing that if somebody tripped, it would be his responsibility. And finally, Bob did this. He unfastened one last little string at the top of his cloak, and his costume fell away. And he smiled at the lightness of being Bob. Shana Tova. I hope it's a year of smiles. I hope despite, if anybody is fasting or has somebody who's fasting around them, if they ever get grumpy, thank them. That means they're struggling with fasting. You guys are going to go and have a lot of fun and have a service. What I want to ask you to do is to participate. You guys have a choice in life. And the choice in life, think about this, is whether you want to be participants or an audience to what's happening in your lives. So today's the morning to start being participants in your lives and in the lives of the Jewish people. Everybody follow the signs that will direct you to grades 1 and 2, grades, good grades, A pluses. Here we go. Everybody head down that path as swiftly and quietly as you can. Thank you to all of you. I hope to see all of you in the next few weeks at our Shabbat services, Simchat Torah services. And I want to do stories with you like these in our services in the Kaneho that are going to start in just a couple of weeks.